just over a week ago, my wife Carol and I, we went to visit my mom. And my mom, who is now 90 years of age, and she had no Christmas decorations up. So they were talking about that, my wife and my mom were talking about that. They decided to get some decorations up. So she had a little tree she put on a table. She got some decorations out that I remembered as kids. And finally we decided to get out, perhaps the most important one of all, the old nativity set. I remember that nativity set when I was a kid because we would bring it out, and then in this box would be all these figures, you know, animals, characters, all wrapped up in paper towels. And of course, the goal was to be the first one of my siblings to find the baby Jesus, right? You gotta find the baby Jesus first. So I picked one up, and I said, this gotta be it. It's the right size, it's the right shape. I open up and, it's a cow. Put that on, okay, open it. But this is it, this is it. And I would open it up, and there's a shepherd kneeling. You know, just about that time, one of my siblings would say, I found the baby Jesus. I go, oh, yeah, thank God he did. And maybe we're quite totally in the Christmas spirit, but a little too competitive. But that was an important thing for us, that old nativity set. And it really is important because the nativity, it brings back nostalgia and all that, but it's much deeper. I mean, the meaning goes so much deeper than we can really imagine. So, imagine, if you will, just imagine we're setting up the nativity. And of course, the first thing you bring out in the nativity to set it up is the stable. You don't start with any of the animals, right? You put the stable. But why do you put a stable? Why not put a palace there for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords? He wasn't born in a palace. Why not put a little inn there? No, because there was no room in the inn, right? But why was there no room in the inn? I mean, why couldn't God just call down and say, hey, I want a reservation for Mary and Joseph, and then get the penthouse suite, right? God could do that. He could make it happen. But he didn't. And I think one of the reasons he didn't is simply because the nativity comes into a messy world. This world is a mess. You know? I mean, it was a mess for Mary and Joseph. So imagine, so here's Mary. She finds out she's going to have God's child. Great. Now the whole village is talking because she's not really married yet, so they're all talking about her. She has to put up with all that. It's ugly. What must have been said. And then maybe that all sort of simmered down after a couple months. And then they come by and say, by the king's decree, we're having this census, everybody has to go back to where they came from, so they got to go to about 90 miles away, several months pregnant. That must not have been an easy trip. His life is messy, right? And then they get to Bethlehem, of course, and there's no room in the inn. So they have the baby in the stable. The baby Jesus is laying in the manger, which means the feeding trough where the animals eat. It's all messy. And I'm going to say God wanted it that way because we live in a messy world. We do. And it just sort of, we got the marks. I got the scars to prove it. I have, as best as I can count, I have 4 scars, okay? Now, one of them is sort of an interesting story. When I was like 13 years of age or something like that, I had braces, so I had to go see the orthodontist, which was in downtown Lancaster. And we had to park like a block and a half away down this little alley. And I thought, I'm going to get my mom. Okay, see, this was my plan. On the corner of this little alley, there was this house that was now a business. There's some sign up there with what it was, I don't know what it was. And it had this little porch. So I ran in front of my mom, I got up on this little porch, and when she came across, I was gonna jump up and yell, boo! And so she's coming, I jump up, and that corner of that sign goes right into my ear. You know, and it's like, oh, so I can't see it, but I'm told there's a scar in there somewhere. I also got a scar on my elbow, because that's another sort of mom's story. Mom was cleaning out my room, and there was this old pitcher that had broken glass in it, and she put it on my bed while she cleaned everything up. I didn't see it. I go diving into my bed right on the elbow. An ER visit, 12 stitches later, and there's a second scar. And by the way, I do have a scar from colon cancer surgery, another scar from where they put in a port for chemotherapy. All this just to say our bodies carry the scars because life is messy. It just doesn't go the way it's always supposed to go. That's life. And you know what's really even more or harder than that is emotional scars. People don't even see those. You know, because life is hard, so many people carry all these emotional scars, and it's tough. Life is tough, life is hard, life is messy. And I think the Nativity reminds us it wasn't any easier for Mary and Joseph and Jesus. Come on, you know? It was hard. And I think the Nativity is a reminder that life is just messy. That life indeed is just messy. So we have the stable, not a palace, not an inn. We have the stable, and then you've got to put all the other characters out there. Of course, the animals, the camels, the sheep. We have to put the wise men and the shepherds. Wise men and shepherds. Why wise men? Why were the wise men and shepherds there? That's easy. God told them, and they went. That's why they were there. But why didn't God send a message to King Herod and his family, or Caesar and his family? Or why didn't God send a message to the high priest, the head of the religious order of the Jews, right? And I think so much of it is this: the Nativity appeals to ordinary people. It really appeals to ordinary people. Now, some of you might say, well, the wise men were not ordinary people, and that's true, but that's not why, God did not talk to the wise men because they were someone special. You know why he had the wise men come? Because they're foreigners, because Jesus came for everybody in the entire world. But amongst the Jews, who did he come to? The shepherds, ordinary people. And I think most of us would put ourselves in that category as just ordinary people. Most of us are not super, super smart. Most of us are not professional athletes or billionaires. By the way, if any of you are billionaires, can you see me following the service? I have this charity called St. John's United Methodist Church. But we're ordinary. And I think it's a funny thing. I think there's a lot of really smart people who don't believe all this, who don't get all this. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some really, really smart people who do believe every word of this. I'm just reminded, the Bible says that. God said that in Corinthians and said, the wise of this world is going to think this is all foolish. They're going to think it's foolish. But for those who are ordinary, it's one time that I'm just so thankful I'm ordinary. Because if I wasn't ordinary, maybe I wouldn't believe this truth. I'm just so thankful that I'm ordinary. So we put out the wise men, the shepherds, the sheep, the camels, and then all that's really left is the Holy Family. And so we put in Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus. The baby Jesus isn't there, because the baby Jesus is right here. There's a young girl who comes to our early service who is just so special. And we have children's time, and often she's the only one, but she comes up for children's time. And so this is a special duty. I'm going to ask Ella. Ella, would you like to put the baby Jesus into the manger? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes, she would. Thank you, Ella. She's certainly on that honor. So now everything changes. Everything changes. Because now that's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And everything changes. In Isaiah 9, the prophet spoke about this king. For unto us a child is given, unto us a son. Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders. He will carry as king, as ruler. And his kingdom is going to be different than any other kingdom. Because first of all, he's going to listen. He'll listen to you. Because he's got wonderful counselor, it says. He comes in power because he's the mighty God. He comes to love you as the everlasting Father. And all will be well, for he is the Prince of Peace. Now, all this wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, is not for something way out in the future. It's for now. I mean, it's for today. Right now, he is changing lives. So we had a young lady in the early service on Sunday, and she had a joy. And I know her story. I mean, her story is one of addiction. It's one of drug abuse. It's one of time in jail. Actually, 2 stints in jail. Running with the wrong crowd. And she raised her hand, said she had a joy on Sunday. And her joy was this. She said, I can't remember the exact date, but as of this week, I'm 1 year sober. And, you know, talking with her later, do you know what she credits it to? Well, she credits her parents quite a bit. But she also credits this church, St. John's. And of course, she needs to most of all credit God, because God is still changing lives, and that's just one example of lives that God has changed. We often think of the Nativity as just a quaint tradition. It's not just a quaint tradition, it's power. It's God's power coming into a messy world for just plain, ordinary people to change their lives. And perhaps you're ready, and perhaps you say, well, that's what I need to do because I'm tired of the life I've been living. And he can change your life. But you know what you need to do? You need to be like the wise men, you need to be like the shepherds, and you need to come and kneel before him, even if you don't do it physically in your heart. Bow in humility before him. And tell him that you're sorry. Tell him that you can't change on your own. But you need God's help. And order to change. We're going to have a time of reflection at this time, and just think about this, think about the Nativity as well, and as Tim and Kevin play sort of a meditative duet for us, let's just take a couple moments to ponder the wonder that is the Nativity. Christ candle. For this evening is about the King of Kings, who was born in a messy, humble way. And he did that for you. I'm going to ask you, if you will, at this point, please stand. The ushers will come forward. They will light their candle off of this candle, which was lit off the Christ candle. Now, as you light your candle, always tip the unlit candle and keep the lit one. As they pass the light, if you can also turn to 239.